Cyber Heralds. It's a deck that plays lots and lots of level 6 rituals. Well, I guess to start, you kinda gotta talk about the Herald himself, Herald of Perfection. During either player's turn, whenever your opponent activates effect, you can just send a fairy-type monster to the graveyard from your hand, then just negate the activation. Destroy that shit. It's not once per turn, it's not... You can just abuse this maliciously. Opponent trying to fuck your hand up with Omegas? Negate the Omega, and negate all the Omegas and destroy them. Wonderful. Your opponent's trying to Raigeki your field, while you have other options to that, again, you can just herald that shit super easily. It's basically a walking, talking... Well, talking's debatable. You just negate everything, so long as you keep your hand full of fairies, which, speaking of which, Saphira loves to help do. While she is not a fairy herself, she does offer many ways to either get more cards to your hand that could be fairies from your graveyard, or, well, she does let you draw cards, and I guess if you're well off enough, you can just start to fuck your opponent's hand up by discarding cards from your opponent's hand. Mind you, the activation condition on this is it has to be during the end phase, and if Saphira was ritual summoned that turn, or if a light monster was sent from the hand of the deck to the graveyard, consider the fact you are playing a Herald, that second condition won't be all too hard to meet if you manage to summon both of them. And, let's face it, you're playing a ritual deck, meaning you probably will be sending cards from the hand to the graveyard fairly consistently. Mind you, these first two are also searchable with pre-prep, which means consistency goes fairly up. And to get to the cyber part of Cyber Herald, you have the two Cyber Angels you're really going to be running. Cyber Angel Edeltin, nothing really special, but if you ritual summon it, you can add a ritual card from your hand to deck to the graveyard, or from your deck or graveyard to your hand. And if you tribute it for a ritual summon, well, all ritual monsters you control gain 1,000 attack and defense. Mind you, that raises Herald from a measly 1,800 attack to a 2,800, which is enough to rival I'd say a fair bit of monsters. You can do a lot with that attack stat. Then on top of that, you have the other one, Cyber Angel Ben 10. There's a joke to be made there, but I mean, not good with the editing enough to make it. If this code destroys it, blah 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 blah. Piercing damage. Well, it's not the piercing damage, really. If you kill an opponent's monster, you can deal damage equal to its original defense. But, I mean, if this card is distributed, you can add one light fairy monster from your deck to the hand, which means, oh boy, you've got multiple rituals that you really want to use, but you only got one of the monsters you want to summon with it. Well, just toss away this Ben 10 and you can summon both, probably. Now, to get to the Cyber Angels, they both cannot be searched with pre-prep, but you're really just using them for the most part as more field advantage, discard fodder for Herald, and maybe Saphira. And really just to buff your cards, although you can summon Ben 10 if you want to. You can also summon Edeltin, but I mean, I just mostly just dump it for the attack boost. It's good. It's really good. So you can add a light fairy monster. You can add a light fairy type monster to your hand, which means you can add this, another copy of itself, any of these, and I mean, I guess, depending on if you're playing that version of the deck. Mind you, they have to be summoned with Machine Angel Ritual, or I guess Machine Angel Absolute Ritual. It works. Machine Angel Ritual, just blah 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 blah, you can equal. It has to be equal to or exceeding the level of a Cyber Angel ritual monster, blah blah blah, who cares? The real important part is, if it's in your graveyard, if a light monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, or this card is in your graveyard, you can just banish it instead. That dark hole your opponent tried to use only blew up their field. That Raigeki never happened. They're playing something like Special Hurricane. Why? But who the fuck cares? It's not happening. Then, on the other hand, you have Machine Angel Absolute Ritual. I really only run one of it because it does allow you to recycle a monster from your graveyard to your deck. Because it allows you to use cards in your graveyard by shuffling them back into your deck, so long as you actually summon a Cyber Angel with it. Mind you, you can use that and all these other wonderful effects that are slapped on the bottom half of these ritual cards, like Dawn of the Herald. When this card... Ah, man. You can banish this card. Just whenever you ritual summon, you can banish it from the graveyard, then return the monster that you basically used to ritual summon it to your hand. Which means you summoned Herald, say using Ben 10. You can search another monster to your hand, and you can recycle with Dawn of the Herald. Mind you, Ben 10's effect is not once per turn, which means if you say, have another Dawn of the Herald in your hand, and another bet, and you recycle your Ben 10 with it, you can then just, search out your Herald, summon that second Herald, search with Edatin, or search with Ben 10 again, and then use Dawn of the Herald to bring it back to your hand, meaning you have lots of negates, and you've got 2 Heralds sitting on the field. It's something. And you have the same destruction protection effect on Hymn of Light, which summons Saphira, as you do with Machine Angel Ritual. But, I mean, that is a lot of combat negation, of destruction negation, really anything. And that's great for the deck to have. Now, general support cards that are just good for the deck is Ritual Sanctuary. If you have a dead ritual card in your hand, and seeing as how some of these really want to be in the graveyard, you can just dump it to add one of your light ritual monsters to your hand, and aka literally any of them. Or you could add a ritual spell card that you might need to summon one of them. It searches, and I mean, you can shuffle any number of spell cards from your graveyard into your deck, then target one fairy monster in the character's equal levels. Special summon it. If you have an excess amount of ritual spells in your graveyard for some reason, you can shuffle them all back into the deck with Ritual Sanctuary, and then you can summon back one of your rituals that you probably dumped. Which is nice, but you're probably not going to use the effect much, although you could use it to summon back a Star Seraph. Now, speaking of which, there are really two versions of the deck where that kind of splits. You could, say, run fucking Megami over here and Advanced Ritual Art, because it's it's just a universal ritual summon, and you don't have to have Megami in your hand. That's okay. And then you have the Star Seraphs, which allow you to potentially draw a fair bit of cards, or just amass more. Well, not amass more. You get more cards in your hand that you can just dump for your ritual summon, which is nice. Or in the case of you already have a Herald on the field, or, I mean, you just want more cards that you can dump with a Herald, you can just, send your Scepter, you can send your Sovereign, but, I mean, they're just there to draw cards, to special summon, and I guess they do offer rank 4 plays. Ah, fuck, a card I forgot to mention was play Manju. It's just 3 of them, literally any ritual deck. You have no excuse unless you pretty much are Shino Birds, in which case it's debatable if you want to run them. But, I mean, hey, we're done.